Hi everyone, it's Evelyn. And as many of you know, aside from being a tiny urban flower farmer, I'm actually also an interior designer by trade. So what that means is every year in the second week of December, I pay attention to what the upcoming color of the year is going to be. So for 2025, that is Mocha Mousse, as you can see over here. Now it's a strange color to use in flowers, so I thought it would be interesting to source out any kind of flower that would work within the realm of this color. Now I did manage to get 14 different choices of flowers that work within the Mocha Mousse realm, and all of them except for one come from Johnny's. So what I'm going to do is go through them all in this video. Now, two of them I am going to be growing for 2025. If you can guess which those two are, let me know in the comments section below. And also, if you have grown them, let us all know in the comments section below what you thought of them, whether you liked them or not, or any other little bits of interesting tidbits that you can about those flowers. Now, I have notes because I wrote little, aside from just telling you what the flower is, of course I have to give you some little facts about each flower as I present them to you. So first up is going to be Celosia terracotta. Now, Celosia is a low-maintenance, full sunflower that likes well-drained soil and will last right up until the first frost. Okay, that's interesting, but not much fun. So I've got a fun fact for you. The fun fact is, did you know that dreaming of Celosia is a good omen, especially for pregnant women? Have any of you ever dreamt of Celosia? If you did anything good happen afterwards? That would be fun to know. The other thing about Celosia is apparently it grows really, really well in pots. So although it's not on my list of flowers to grow for 2025, I might try it in a large pot because I don't have to have that in the cut flower beds. I can just have that off to the side somewhere. So that's a possibility. So that's Celosia Selway. The next two flowers, because they're both the same flower but in different colors, are China Aster Valkyrie Brunhilde Shami. I don't know how to pronounce that. The name is in the flower, as you can see. And China Aster King Size Apricot. Now, China Aster, also known as Callistephus chinensis, maybe I'll put the spelling of that on the screen too, comes from the Greek words Callisto, which means most beautiful, and Stephus, which means crown. So Callistephus is where those two words come from. The flower heads can be up to 5 inches, so that would normally really intrigue me, because if you know anything about me, you know that I like large flower heads. I don't like the really little ones. And the problem with that for me, though, is it's a late bloomer, and I'm all about dahlias once July rolls around, or even the fourth week of June. I'm all about my dahlias right up until the first killing frost. So I don't need a 5-inch flower head to compete with them. I will already have sunflowers which will have a 5-inch flower head to put in there with them. I don't need a third. Well, I would do a third if my flower farm was bigger, but it's tiny. So I have to really relegate what I decide to grow in the small growing areas that I have, and to know that what I do grow produces a lot in each square footage that it's in. So because I'm already doing the sunflowers and I'm already doing the dahlias, which are both larger size flowers, China Aster just isn't going to make the cut for me. But it is a good fall flower. It's a late bloomer, and it is good for not just the flower, but also for winter bouquets. So it will go right up until the first killing frost as well. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, take a moment and hit the like button. I always appreciate that. So now let's move on to Dara chocolate lace. Dara is a variety of Queen Anne's lace. It is highly productive, with each plant growing about 7 to 15 stems. So that would make it actually a good plant for my flower beds. However, I'm probably not going to grow that one either, because I would have to drop something to grow that. And there isn't anything that I particularly, at this point in my flower farming life, that I'm ready to drop for that. That could change. I mean, things are already starting to change, because the last 2 years, our summers have gotten so much hotter and drier than they had been before, especially last year. So that in itself makes me rethink some of the things that I'm doing, because I prefer exceptionally low. I want to put as little labor into my flowers as possible, because every time you put labor into it, there's a cost associated with that. So some of the flowers that I was using that don't really like being up on the road in my flower wagon, which gets nailed with the heat, I have to consider not necessarily growing as much of, because now it's an issue. I couldn't really use much of them at all last year, such as borage. And that's unfortunate, because I can't change my flower wagon to be more of an enclosed space. I mean, our roadside is a steep incline right to our fence, and there's only one small landing area. And aside from that, I don't think the city would allow me to put a building up there. I think I'm getting away with what I'm doing because everybody likes it. I mean, the city hall is literally just 2 blocks away from where I live, and people going to work drive past my flower wagon. So I have to stay within the rules of what's acceptable and what's not. I already have too much signage. If somebody ever complained, I'd have to adjust that. But everybody likes it, so nobody's complaining. Anyway, so back on to Dara chocolate lace. Dara is a variety of Queen Anne's lace, and it is highly productive. I said that already. Fun fact, did you know, not of Dara, but of Queen Anne's lace, of which Dara is one of them, a teaspoon of crushed Queen Anne's lace seeds has been used for over 2,000 years as a form of natural birth control. That is wild. So the next flower, well, it's not really a flower, but it's beautiful. It'd be a great filler, is Jewels of Opar. This is another one that I might consider growing in pots, especially on my deck, because it tolerates hot, dry sites, excuse me, as well as poor soil. Now, my deck cooks in the summer. I can't find anything that grows on it. It just destroys any plants that are on it because of the heat. It gets nailed by the heat. The lower half of our deck, literally all day. The top half does go in shade, so I do have plants that will grow on the top half of my deck. But it's a huge deck. It's on top of our 2-car garage, and the lower half gets hit with the sun all day long in the summer. And I literally can't find anything that grows well on there. So this might be a good option. So anyway, it is a 24-inch high, low-growing, clumping ground cover. And it has glossy yellow-green leaves that have pinkish-purple edges. But come August and September, it sprouts up pale pink to mid-pink flowers that turn into these gorgeous berries that stay on the plant until late winter. So it would be another one for late interest in bouquets. And I wouldn't grow it in my flower beds because, again, it's not going to add anything that would want me to replace something with. But I've been searching forever for things that will live happily on my deck. So if I can grow, especially because it's low, so it won't impede our view of the ocean. So if I can grow that on my deck in large pots and it does well, then I can still use it in bouquets if I want, if I grow enough of it. So I might try that. You never know. I might not. I have to think about that one. So it's self-seeding, and it is great for dried arrangements or wreaths as well. So if you do dried flowers or you do wreath making for Christmas, this is a really good addition to that. I don't do either. Fun fact, the leaves are edible and can be used in stews, soups, or salads. So it is both a food and flower farming crop. And that's another thing that I like. I like the idea of having multi-purpose. Because let's say you have a year where you're not selling very much. Well, then you can eat it. Anyway, so that's just the thought. I mean, I don't do dual flowers, but I do leave space in my back flower beds for the foods that I really enjoy growing and eating. I don't grow, like people say, you grow nasturtium, you can eat it too, but we don't like the taste of nasturtium, so I'm not going to grow it. I'm only going to grow food that I like the taste of. And my guess is I probably wouldn't like the taste of Jewels of Opar. You never know. Maybe I would. If you've eaten it, what does it taste like? That would be interesting. Put it in the comment section below. Okay, so next up we have Lisianthus Rosanne to Terracotta. So Lisianthus has probably all of you know, is commonly known as lizzies. But did you know that they are the birth flower of Sagittarius? I guess if you are a Sagittarius, you would know that. So they originate in North America along desert riverbeds and prairie regions of Texas, Nebraska, Nevada, and Colorado, where the original heritage flower is called prairie gentian. However, the modern day version that we all know for flower farming was created in Japan by flower breeders back in the 1930s. So that's kind of cool. Next up, we have Nicotiana Bronze Queen. So the Nicotiana plant was named after Jean Nicot, a 16th century French ambassador who introduced tobacco to the French court. Now, we all know how that went. If you were confused, however, about tobacco and the flower plant, Nicotiana is a genus, and that includes over 60 species of not only the flowering version that we all know, but also the tobacco plant, which is called Nicotiana tabacum. Tabacum? Yeah, tabacum. So, because they're from the same genus, I guess, that's why I gave that fact about the tobacco version of it. The flowering varieties are known as flowering tobaccos. And Nicotiana, aside from having that interesting connection to tobacco, is also deer resistant and can tolerate some shade. Does that mean that it doesn't like being in blasting heat? Let me know in the comment section below. Because again, I haven't grown all of these, so I don't have a lot of experience and knowledge on them. So whatever you can share, I am more than happy to know about, as I'm sure are a lot of the other followers of this channel. The plant juices can be used as an insect repellent. Here's a fun fact just on me. Insects don't bother me. If there's somebody else in the room, they're going to get the mosquito bite, not me. Mosquitoes never bite me. I Googled into that once, and it's commonly thought that it has a lot to do with your blood type. So, and that makes sense because my husband always gets bit by mosquitoes, and I never do. My dad never gets bit by mosquitoes, but my mom did. I say that like he's alive. They're both dead. And my dad had the same blood type that I do. So that's a possibility that's true. But anyway, yeah, I never get a mosquito bite. I do get bit by spiders sometimes. So another fun fact about, what are we talking about? I got sidetracked there. What are we talking about, Nicotiana? Another fun fact about them is that it is used in pharmacology and perfumery. It was also used to fatten pigs. Now there's a nice thought. On a more pleasant visual, Nicotiana also attracts hummingbirds. Sorry, just all over the place in that flower. Now the next one we're going to talk about is the one that is not sold at Johnny's. If you are in Canada, you can buy it at West Coast Seeds, which is on the West Coast. You can buy it at Vessie's, which is on the East Coast, and you can buy it at TNT Seeds, which I believe is located in the Prairie area. Realistically, you can get it from any one of those places, no matter where you live, because they ship. I know they sell them at those three because those are the three Canadian seed companies that I do order from. I don't order from any other Canadian seed company. They may be available at them too. Don't know. They're probably available at other seed companies in the States too. Don't know. But anyway, it is an ornamental grass called Jade Princess. Now, aside from being called Jade Princess, it is also commonly called Pearl Millet. It is a 30-inch tall annual bunch grass that is native to Africa. And that's it. That's all I got. Anyone else have anything interesting to say about it? Because that is all I could find. And while you're at it, if you're talking about anything you know about it, or even if you're not, consider subscribing and joining our flower family. Because I've got lots of interesting fun facts in other videos to share with you for the upcoming year, and I'd love it if you would join us. So now let's move on to the Snapdragon Chantilly Bronze. They are another flower that is both food and floral. The flowers, even though they're edible, are mostly used just as garnishes, which tells me that they probably don't taste that great. They grow best in damp soil, which is an interesting point because not that many cut flowers grow well in damp soil. So I liked that idea with lots of sun. So that means I might actually be able, and I didn't, I did dig up the soil there now, but I might be able to leave my Snapdragons cut back and leave them in the soil for the following year. Generally, I don't do that with a lot of things because my soil is soaked in the winter. It's awful how wet it gets. I actually, if you follow me for a while, you know that I sell my hyacinths, daffodils, and tulips in 1-gallon pots that I put up in the flower wagon in the spring. After they've been soaked by a good rain, I cover them with plastic for the rest of the winter because I can't have my bulbs rotting, and they will rot if I leave them in the pots over the winter just sitting out there. So every winter after I finished potting them all up, which I only did last week, so they're not covered up yet. But after because I did them when we were having a stretch of sunny weather, and it's still in theory sunny, but we've been getting a lot of fog and a lot of drizzle, which isn't enough to waterlog the pots. As soon as we hit the next rainstorm, which should be in a few days probably, I'll be running out there and covering them up so that the soil inside the 1-gallon pots does not get waterlogged. Anyway, I'm sidetracking again. Fun fact about snapdragons: they were thought to be the guardians of European castles and were planted near their gates. Well, card just pulled up and pulled away. They were thought to be guardians, excuse me, of European castles and were planted near their gates. I'm guessing, this is me saying this, so I'm just guessing this, that was because their mouths are kind of like dragons. That's what they were thought of. That's why they're called snapdragons. And I mean, really seriously, who wouldn't want a dragon protecting your home? They were also part of the Roman and Greek mythology, where they were thought to protect against witchcraft and aging if worn around the neck. So I might have to start wearing snapdragons around my neck. So that's what I got on snapdragons. So the next flower we're going to talk about is Statice Apricot. So Statice originated in the meadows of the Mediterranean and Central Asia. Statice is popular both fresh and dried, as it keeps its true color when dried, unlike most flowers. Again, that doesn't interest me because I don't dry flowers, but it is one of the more popular dried flowers for that very reason. It does keep its color, especially the blue Statice. It really keeps its true blue color. Statice Apricot presumably does as well. Again, I don't do dried flowers. Another really interesting fact is that it grows well in salty soil. So it's really good for coastal locations. That said, I am a coastal location, and I have never found the salt in the air to affect the health of my plants. I'm going to assume that's because I have really healthy soil, and a little bit of salt that collects on the soil isn't going to affect it. In fact, I put seaweed on my soil over the winter, and the rains that we get washes the salt all away. I'm going to assume that when you're talking about any kind of plant that's affected by the salt in the air, that's where it's native soil that isn't being enhanced at all. It just is what it is. So literally right along the coastline where you're not farming or growing anything, that's where it would matter. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about flower farming. So I don't think that would be an issue one way or the other. Anyway, for anybody who wanted to cut flowers along the coast, that wanted to grow flowers that didn't tolerate the salt in the air, I don't think that's an issue. Sidetracking again. So here's an interesting thing about it. Some say, I've never heard any flower farmer say this, but on the other hand, I've never heard any flower farmer say this about Russian sage. And when I read it, you will know that I have said this about Russian sage. Apparently, Statice, some say, smells like cat urine. Anybody get that smell from it? I've never grown Statice. I get that smell from Russian sage, and I pulled it all out of my garden because flower beds because the smell is just so overpowering, and it's awful that I can't handle it. And yet, lots of people grow Russian sage and don't smell that. So I guess that's just a person by person kind of thing. So it's also deer resistant, and it's almost completely pest and disease free. Pretty cool. Next flower up on my list is stalk Katz apricot. So this is another addition to the food floral category. The stalk flowers are edible. They have a floral flavor, whatever that means. But their pods, after the flower has finished blooming, taste similar to radish. Has anybody tasted a stalk pod and tasted the radish taste into it? I thought that was a really interesting fact. And one of the reasons for this is because stalk is part of the cabbage family. It is related not just to cabbages, but also kale, turnip, broccoli, and Brussels sprouts, although it didn't say it was related to radishes. That said, radish flower, no, I was just thinking beet flowers. No, ignore my muttering right then. Anyway, they are considered to be one of the easiest flowers to grow and are native to the Mediterranean. I grew stalk one year, and they grew about this tall, so that was it for me. The next flower on our list is Strawflower Silver Rose. Strawflowers originated in Australia, and they grow best in a dry, well-draining, sunny spot. So you see, that's good for me in the summer because we are very, very dry in the summer now. Never used to be, but we're so wet in the winter. Did you know that the coarse, stiff, colorful, and noisy parts of the strawflower are not actually petals, but they are modified leaves or bracts? Kind of like hydrangeas have that too, especially lace hydrangeas. All of what looks like the little flowers around the little beads in the center, all those little flowers are not actually flowers. They are bracts as well in hydrangea. Fun fact, Egyptians used them to decorate their gods' statues. Okay, we are now going to talk about Sunflower Strawberry Blonde. So now, this is interesting. If you've been following me for a while, at some video in the past, I don't remember which one, I talked about how I used to grow and will again grow plum sunflowers. And the first year that I grew plum sunflowers, this is what they looked like. And I loved them. They had a really beautiful autumnal look to them. And I really, really enjoyed using them. And they actually inspired me to use in a couple of my fine art photos. I'll just put up the two that I used them for. It's not actually the open flower, but it's the starting to open. I loved the plum sunflowers. I had only bought a small packet of them to try out because that's what I do with anything that I grow for the first time is I will just do a small packet of seeds. And I love them so much, I bought a much larger packet to grow for the following year. The following year, they looked completely different. They looked like this. And I mentioned in the previous video, I have no idea why my plum sunflowers could look so completely different from one year to the next, even though it was a different seed packet. Now, I am considering that was a mislabeled seed packet because this is Sunflower Strawberry Blonde. Does it not look like my second version of the plum sunflower? I think it does. I think I got a mislabeled packet. Not that the packet was mislabeled, but a batch of seeds went into the wrong seed filling machine, or however that works, or a bunch of, I don't know. You know what I mean. The packet of plum sunflowers I got was not actually pro-cut plums, but was strawberry blonde. That's what I think. I could be completely wrong, but it sure looks like the strawberry blonde to me. Anyway, for sunflowers, I have several fun facts. First of all, there are up to 2,000 seeds per sunflower head. So that is quite interesting. But that's more interesting than fun facts. Here are the fun facts. Back in 2012, U.S. astronaut Don Petit brought sunflower seeds to the International Space Station. So I think that's pretty interesting and fun. And then, even more interesting, so we all probably know that sunflowers are really, really good at removing toxins from the soil. And when I said that, did anybody think of grazon? Because that's one of the things, if you think you've got grazon poisoning in your soil from manure, sunflowers is one of the things that you can plant to really draw those toxins out. They are so good, sunflowers, at removing toxins from the soil that they were used to clean up the nuclear disasters, both Chernobyl, where huge fields were planted, and also Fukushima. So that's really interesting. They're so good at removing toxins that they're used to remove nuclear disaster stuff, whatever it might be, from the soils surrounding the Chernobyl and Fukushima issues that happened. Did you know that there's dogs living around Chernobyl? Pets that were left behind because of the potential of nuclear poisoning, and you couldn't remove them from that area, and they survived. And through generations, there's still dogs living there, and they've had some adjustment. They're actually scientists are trying to figure out how they survived and what the changes in their bodies were. They caused by the nuclear problems, or were they just some sort? There's two different packs, for want of another word, of dogs. So I'm wondering if they were eating the sunflower seeds to help keep themselves alive. That's just not part of this fun fact, but it's just something that I was wondering about. Anyway, the thing with sunflowers is that they are incredibly demanding of attention. So they're difficult to use in bouquets sometimes. They're really easy to use in bouquets with dinner plate dahlias, because the dinner plate dahlias are so much more demanding than the sunflowers. But when you're trying to work sunflowers into bouquets that don't have drama queens in the bouquet as well, it's difficult sometimes to figure out how to get that balance of the sunflower with the other smaller, less dramatic flowers as well. If you find that you're having any kind of problems figuring out how to work your sunflowers into bouquets, because all flower farmers grow sunflowers as far as I know. I can't even think of one that I've run across that doesn't grow sunflowers. But a lot of them do have trouble working the sunflowers into a bouquet that they're happy with the recipe. And if you find that you're one of those people, you should really watch this video over here, because I go over 7 different sunflower recipes. See you next week. Bye.